Hello friends, just a reminder, this is just the audio version of the PowerPoint presentation for those of you that absorb information better auditorily. Is that a word? Auditorily? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so Watercolor Lesson 6, creating a two-layer geometric sketch. This is a good exercise to try after you've become confident of your ability to read values well. As in the 5-value monochrome study, this approach is designed to reveal how much of the information in the scene needs to be included in the actual painting that will follow. It adds color to the equation, but in a deliberately oversimplified form. It helps you answer the question, how does color work with value? Each of the major shapes in your composition is simplified almost to the level of basic geometric forms. A fir tree is roughly a green triangle. Clouds may be elongated ovals. A hill can be a half circle. It's fine for shapes to be approximate. They don't need to be pure geometric forms. Just don't let them become too specific. Focus instead on getting the values right. Assign a color and value to each shape. Try to summarize the information you can see within a given shape so that it can be expressed in its simplest form. Let go of texture and detail. A tree is a single shape rather than a collection of leaves. The finished sketch will look like a collage made of cut pieces of colored paper. Since this exercise involves two variables, color and value, keep it simple by limiting your palette to 3 colors, 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue. Mixing these is fine, but if you want a green, make it by combining the blue and yellow rather than by introducing a 4th color. You're making a learning tool, not a painting. So if your colors don't make a good purple or the green is not intense enough, let it be. You will still be well informed about what the final painting needs. Evaluate the subject. The doors in this picture are small shapes contained within a bigger shape, the yellow wall. They do not need to be there to create a feeling of space, so I want to include them only if they feel essential to the painting. I know I want the door on the right, but I'm not sure the scene needs the other door. Block in the major shapes. Give each shape a first layer wash representing its lightest shape. The overlapping shapes begin to suggest a feeling of space. If you're uncertain about a shape, leave it out. The finished study will reveal whether the picture could do without it. Apply a second layer where needed. Since this study aims to ignore texture and detail, little more than the shadows needed to be added. Even simplified to this degree, shadows go a long way toward establishing a convincing sense of light. Stopping after 2 layers provides a means of assessing where and how much further information needs to be added. Any remaining questions can be directed to the finished sketch, and hopefully the answers will be apparent. For example, what do you think about the second door? How much more or less of the complexity of the upper story would you include? If you chose to represent the cobblestones in the street, how many would you need to show? What about the cast shadow of the roof? Is it important to show that it's made of tiles? What if the sky were blue? Would you put the lamppost back in? You can see how the fact that the information is not here makes it easy to decide whether you want to put it in your painting. Where the long diagonal shadow crosses the doorway, I forgot to darken the red frame. I would definitely want that in the proper painting. And the shadow of the awning has slid way off to the right. But basically, the shapes work and the sun is shining. Thinking about stopping. Both of the previous exercises encourage intentionally leaving out all but the most basic information. Most of the time, you'll want to include more. It's unusual to be content with just one color or with shapes that have no texture. But the benefit of seeing the image in its minimal form is that you can move back toward your comfort zone by increments, stopping as soon as the essential information is present. This greatly increases the odds that you won't overpaint the picture. When I'm convinced that part of the picture needs more information, I practice a minimalist approach, asking, what is the smallest change I can make that will move the picture in the right direction? In the early stages of getting to know a new subject, I want to err on the side of too little information, since I'm better at adding than taking away. From this point of view, it bears repeating that there's a hierarchy of the marks I might make based on the impact they can have. A pale stroke, for example, is less insistent than a dark one, and a soft edge is gentler than a hard one. Using colors that are similar in hue and intensity to what is already there is less obtrusive than introducing new ones. The idea is to leave the door open for adding more only if necessary. Once you understand your subject well in terms of the language of watercolor, it's not necessary to be so cautious. A thoughtful approach to painting may seem very cerebral at first, but over time, it becomes instinctive. I sometimes wish that a detached observer could come along and present me with this sign at just the right moment. It frequently takes just such an intrusion to get us to detach from our agenda. I often regretted not stopping sooner in a painting, but I've never looked at a finished painting with regrets that I stopped too soon. This scene of intense light and shadow is so thoroughly convincing that the simplicity of execution is not immediately apparent. In any given shape, how many layers do you see? Even in the most complex areas, I count no more than 3. Looking more closely at the section of the street scene, it becomes clear that he's taken what could have been a very complex passage and made it into a single shape. Several buildings, cars, and figures are suggested with a varied wash and a few reserved lights. The artist knew this was just enough information to prompt us to supply the details. So for your assignment today, I want you to create a color study using the techniques we discussed today. Use only 3 colors and minimal values. How much detail do you need? Ask yourself, does my message translate to the viewer? If yes, stop. If no, add a little bit more, okay? Make sure that you add notes to your study to help you with your future painting. I want to see those notes.